2017, I was getting ready for the regular season with the Montreal Alouettes, and I'm sitting at home, relaxing, chilling on the couch, and like many of you, I'm doom scrolling through Twitter. And as I'm doom scrolling through Twitter, I see a tweet from my professional organization that said the following players had been released. So of course, I look at the document, I scan across it, and I'm like, okay. And there it goes. I see my name. And immediately I'm like, nah, can't be. Not me. Because a year prior, I was released by the NFL with the Los Angeles Rams, and now this is the second time that this has happened to me. And so immediately, I slumped into the couch. And so the thoughts in my head began to be a lot of negative thoughts. And the biggest question that I had for me was, who am I without what I do? Who am I without what I do? You see, I've been playing the game of football since I was about 8, 9 years old. That was everything to me. Everybody knew who I was through the game of football. So now that my career is gone, my identity is gone. And also in that moment, at that time, the driving force for the reason why I played football passed away, which was my mother. So I also was grieving. And a couple months after that moment, I was getting ready to be a father. My wife, who was my then girlfriend at the time, was expecting our first child. So all of this stuff is happening to me at that very moment while I'm sitting on that couch, relaxing. And I started to think like, dang, what in the world am I gonna do? And so as I sat back on the couch, closed my eyes, and I looked up to the ceiling and just sitting there in silence, a flashback occurred to me, and it took me to this one late night when I was a little boy. And that's me and my mommy right there. And it was through the thin walls of our 600 square foot apartment. I used to hear the soft crying, muttering, and erratic breathing coming from the other side of my wall. Initially, I thought I was hearing things because it was late at night, and I just had woken up from a light sleep. And so I get out of bed, I walk over to the wall, and I put my ear to it. And as I'm listening more in depth, the sobbing and the crying began to get more frequent and intensified to the point where I felt like my body just began to get heavier and heavier and heavier. And I fall to the floor, face covered in tears, because I couldn't hear the other person on the other side continue to cry because that other person was my mother. You see, my mom, she had lupus. And what lupus is a chronic disease, which means that there's no cure for it. And in addition, it's an autoimmune disease, which means that your immune system that's supposed to be protecting you is now fighting against you. And she was crying because of her inability to support me, right? We lived off Section 8, food stamps, welfare programs, living off her SSI check. And so everything, all that weight, financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, environmentally, was dawned upon her. And I finally mustered up the courage when I was sitting on that floor, and I asked my mom, "Mom, are you okay?" And she responded just like any of you mothers would do, "Mama's okay, baby." And I knew she was lying. And so I asked her a little more firm, maybe more aggressive than what I would have done with my mom. And I said, "Mom, are you okay?" And then her response was simple, but yet profound to me. And she responded, "Everything's gonna be all right. I promise." And so those words echoed to me that same day on that couch when I was sitting there in that silence. And it taught me that in that moment that whenever you are going through something that's challenging in that sense, in that motion, right, you have to think about what's going to keep you going, right? And little did I know that in that moment, whenever I'm going through adversity, challenges, opposition, when I get emotional from hearing that phrase, that I just know internally that I'm going to get through it. And it taught me that resilience is the action, is how we rise, but most importantly, purpose is the anchor in why we rise.